Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us and listening to and watching Ignited, the podcast where everybody gets to join in and hear some amazing stories from fantastic people who have had transformations in their life or opportunities where they had to just kind of make some big decisions. Did they want to stay in the situation they were in, or did they want to move forward into an entirely different direction? And what sparked them to do that? Today, I'm very excited to have Luis Montoya, fitness guru and businessman, on the show. He is going to just enrich us with so many little bit of tidbits, not only from his transformation and his entire journey, but also just kind of guiding us with a little bit of advice in the direction for men and women that we can kind of both just touch on what people can do in their everyday lives to make things a little bit more easy and more just full of love and respect. So thank you, Louise, for joining us. And it sounds like for the last 13 years, you have been on this amazing journey where you just went from, a lot of struggles in your life where you probably weren't in the best health and best shape, but then you made a decision. And that's one of the things that I really want to hear about. And I'm sure everybody else does too, of what made you decide that you needed to go into a different direction, start bettering your health and saying, I'm tired of this. And I just want to move into, some kind of path that is just going to enrich my life so much more. And then now where that's brought you today and how you can advise not only men, but women too, about how we can also continue to have that strength, discipline, and also courage to just continue to be healthy in our body, soul, and mind. And then also how we can be together as men and women. I think it would be so amazing if you and I could just kind of touch on where men and women are missing the mark and just coming together and showing each other how we can be better in each other's lives. What is a man? What is a woman? And how do we come together again?
I love it. I love it. First of all, thank you for having me. It's definitely a pleasure. Let's dive right into it.
All right, excellent. So do you want to just kind of let us know a little bit about the last 13 years? Just to give us maybe a little quick summary on that.
Yeah, definitely. So I myself, I'm a fitness business entrepreneur. I'm a transformation specialist. I've been doing this for roughly about 13 years now. Very successful at what I do. I do mentor a lot of elite individuals in different spaces, different businesses. And my goal is to just help men and women as well. I try to concentrate on men. I try to help them become the best version of themselves. A lot of people come to me thinking that they're just going to lose some weight to get a six pack, but most of the guys that come to me, they become the best version of themselves. They become better fathers, better husbands, better individuals, men of God. It's a full life transformation. But I did start my journey roughly about 13 years ago. It wasn't anything like this. It was a whole different lifestyle. I was in a comfortable relationship, high school sweetheart. I think we were together for roughly about 20 years. So I think I met her when I was like 13. We started dating roughly about like when I was 16. And she was all I knew. She was all I knew. And, I got comfortable, which is the one thing that I tell men not to do in relationships. Everybody, it seems like when men, they try so hard to get the girl of their dreams. And when they do, they stop doing all the stuff that made them successful. For some reason, they think, I got the girl. I don't have to work out anymore. I don't have to try anymore. Like, she's not going anywhere. And I think that's when we start emasculating ourselves by doing stuff that just does not align with our purpose. And that was my case. I wasn't focused on the right things. I wasn't focused on my mission. I didn't know what my mission in life was. And I was struggling. Financially. Everything was pouring onto different areas. The fact that I wasn't thriving to become a better version of myself started pouring into my relationship. I started getting comfortable. I started getting lazy, didn't want to go to the gym anymore. And I was just working an average 9-to-5 job. And that led to me, just not taking care of myself. I ended up gaining 100 pounds and I got really overweight, got to the point where I was actually obese. And, just started spending my money on the wrong things. I've always been a car guy, so I would spend my money on my car rather than investing in my future and mentors and things like that. I just didn't really have a role model in my life. But yeah, what got me started into fitness was the fact that my high school sweetheart at the time, my girlfriend, she ended up getting pregnant, and she told me that I was going to be a dad. And at that point, I realized that I was in a place that I didn't like. I remember having that conversation with myself one day, and I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, wow, like I'm going to be a dad. And I was just disgusted with what was looking back. I mean, I completely let myself go. I gained 100 pounds, had stretch marks. I had man boobs. I was broke. I didn't have anything to show for as far as accomplishments in my life. And it just felt like I was in a really bad place. I was embarrassed of who I became. And I knew that I wanted to make a change, especially for my kid. I just wanted to be a superhero dad for my kid. I wasn't prepared for it. And I think a lot of the times you're not really prepared for fatherhood. It's just, a lot of times it just happens. And I don't think too many people plan it anymore, but sometimes that's the best things that can happen to you, because it kind of wakes you up from where you're at. Right. So I got to the point where I wanted to make a change. And I started working out. I started working out because I thought to myself, if I'm going to be in that delivery room, I'm going to be one of the first faces that my kid sees, and I don't want him to see me like this. And being 100 pounds overweight, it was a really, really tough time. Just trying to run. My ankles were hurting, my knees were swelling. I was struggling, but I remember I set the goal, and one day I went to a grocery store. I went to Avance, and I saw this magazine. And there was this guy on the fitness cover, and I was like, man, who's that dude? Like, that guy looks amazing. He's very attractive looking. He had the physique, he had the hair, he had the look and everything. And I was like, wow, like I want to look like that. And I was the guy who would never buy any magazines. I would just take the information, put it back, and go about my day. But that day something was calling me, and I bought the magazine. And I remember I put it up on my wall. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be that guy in the magazine. And I remember telling my friends about it, coworkers and everybody. I showed them the magazine, when I bought it, and I was like, yeah, hey guys, I'm going to start working out. And one day I'm going to be that guy on that magazine. And I remember they all laughed at me. They were like, oh, come on, Luis, look at you, you're fat. Like, you on a magazine? Come on, you're kidding yourself, right? But and that hurt. Because but it was my boys, and we're just horsing around, and I kind of utilized that as a little bit of fuel. I was like, I'm going to show these guys. So I took the magazine, and I remember I put it on that wall. And at this time, I had no clue about manifestation, about the law of attraction or anything like that. But I remember I specifically put it on my wall right next to my bed. So I thought to myself, the more that I see it, the more that I'm going to want it. So as soon as I wake up, I'm going to see that magazine. When I go to bed, before I go to bed, I'm going to look at that magazine. And it's just a constant reminder of who I wanted to become. And I remember, shortly after, a couple months went by, and I remember my girl, she was in the bathroom, and she was crying. It was like first thing in the morning, like 4 o'clock in the morning. And it was dark, and I remember walking in there. And I remember she was on the floor, and there was blood everywhere. And I remember the door was kind of cracked open, and I already knew. I kind of figured what was happening, but I was just afraid to open that door. And I remember I opened the door, and I see her on the floor, and she's just crying. And I'm like, what happened? And she's crying, and she looks at me, and she's like, I don't know what's happening. And there's blood everywhere. And, she was having a miscarriage. And so they ended up rushing her. to the hospital. And at that time, I don't know. It's really hard, actually, me talking about this stuff, because it still hurts me. But every single time I talk about it, it's almost like I relive it. But I just didn't have my priorities straight, and I wanted to be there for her. But I remember I I was at the point where like I was having problems at work. My boss was like, I was walking a fine line. He was like, if you're late one more time, you're gonna get fired. And I remember I told her, I was like, you know what, I'll have your mom go to the hospital with you, and I'm gonna see if I can get out of work and just meet you there. What I should have done is I should have just said, screw work. I'm gonna be there for my girl. But this is another reason. I think this is a really good time for me to bring up how important it is to have a masculine um, personality, or there's someone who's masculine in your circle. My dad was a very masculine guy, but he was a good worker and a good provider, but he wasn't a good father. My dad never guided me through any of this stuff. He never told me, hey, this is what you should be doing. But it's very, very important for men to have other strong men that are going to teach them how to react under these situations. So I remember I ended up leaving work. I got there, and she had lost the baby. She lost the baby, and it really affected both of us really, really bad. And I remember, like, at first when I had found out that I was going to be a dad, I was scared, but then I remember how happy she was. It's interesting because a lot of I don't know if you ever heard this. I'm sure you have, because you got kids. How they say that there's just a different glow with pregnant women. Like, I remember this one time just looking at her, and I was like, wow, she looks so beautiful. And she was just pregnant. She was just so happy and everything. And it really affected both of us because, we were planning on being parents. I remember I used to talk to the baby, and, but yeah, that affected us really bad. And right after that, that relationship just started going sour, just because I didn't know how to come about it, how to fix it. I wanted to fix it, but I mean, being Hispanic, and not to throw any Hispanics under the bus, but I feel like nobody talks about healing, about expressing your emotions and things like that. And so I was just bottling everything in, and it was affecting me and it was affecting her. And I thought to myself, if I ignore it, maybe it'll just go away. We won't have to talk about it. So got to the point where she started resenting me. I started arguing with her. It just turned into a really bad toxic relationship. It got to the point where like I had to leave that relationship just because it was just a really bad situation for both of us. So I had to walk away from a 20-year relationship, and I lost a 20-year relationship. I lost a son, and at that point I just didn't have any family to turn to. So I ended up going homeless. I didn't have anybody like to turn to at that point. And it got to the point where like I ended up losing my job, and I didn't have anywhere to go. And I was sleeping in one of the parks here in North County for a couple months until I finally got back on my feet. When I finally got back on my feet, I remember my mom was like, hey, you can stay here for a couple weeks until you figure it out. So I did. And I got to the point where like I just started hating life. I just didn't understand my situation. I wasn't understanding like what was happening. I felt like before the miscarriage, a lot of the stuff was going right, but it wasn't. But in my eyes, I thought everything was fine, and I felt like God was punishing me, or I didn't understand it. I didn't have a good relationship with God. So I got to the point where like I was actually in a really dark place, and I was contemplating suicide. Got to the point where like I actually wanted to take my own life. And I ended up getting a job, and every single time that I would drive back from work, I was like contemplating like, how am I gonna like take my own life? I got to the point where like I started researching on Google, like what's the fastest way and the least painful way to commit suicide. And it's really interesting, like the stuff that you can find there. But I was just in a really dark place. I was dealing with anxiety, depression, I think maybe PTSD from that whole, traumatic moment. That's something that I never, ever like wish upon even my worst enemy. Like losing a child it's very difficult, especially when you're both are planning for it. But I remember the one day that I thought I was going to do it. I decided I was going to take a knife and I was just going to slice my wrist. And I was in my mom's bathroom because I was staying there. And I remember I took the knife and I put it up to my wrist, and I just started crying. I looked at myself in the mirror, and at that moment, that's the first time in a very long time that I actually prayed. And I started praying. I got on my knees and I started praying to God. And I was like, God, I don't know why this is happening, but if you need me to go through this, just please help me, because I can't do this alone. And I swear at that moment, I felt the Holy Spirit for the very first time. I do believe that that was the Holy Spirit, because there's nothing that I've ever felt like that. And it was just like this cool feeling that just picked me up. And I remember I just felt like this weight that I was carrying that was just slowly like just elevating from me. And I didn't do it. I didn't do it. And slowly but surely, I remember after that, I was just in a bad place. But then I started praying. I started talking to God. Like, I didn't really know how to pray. I was just like, I'm going to talk to God like he's just my friend, a guy. And,
Right.
And it's interesting because that's what I always tell people, just talk to God. Like, there's no like perfect way. Just start talking to him. And sure enough, I remember one day I just got tired. I got tired of being the man that I was. I was tired of losing at life. I was tired of the way that I looked, my situation, my financial situation. I was tired of the relationships that I had, just the family environment that I had. And I was like, I no longer want to become this person. And what I did at that point, I remember one day I just took a piece of paper and I was like, I'm going to create a new character in life. Now, remember, I started writing down everything I didn't like about myself. And so I took the paper and I split it in half, right? So I wrote down all the stuff that I hated about myself at that very moment, things that I just were not acceptable in my life anymore. And I started writing down the man that I wanted to become, this character. It's like it was a new character, right? And I remember writing down that I wanted good hair, I wanted a nice smile, I wanted to be successful, I wanted to be financially successful, have an abundant life. I wanted to have an attractive partner. I wanted a good relationship with God. I wanted to be in the magazine. I was like, I'm going to be that guy in the magazine, and I just want to be a man of God who inspires other men to be better. And sure enough, I gave myself a blueprint, and I was like, okay, if I want to be in shape, I have to start going to the gym. I just I started writing down like a little to-do list for myself, right? If I want to be successful, well, I don't have money for business mentorships or anything like that. So I'm just going to watch YouTube. I started watching Kobe Bryant, Will Smith. I started studying all these successful people like Jim Carrey. They all talk about the law of attraction. I didn't even understand the law of attraction. I didn't really understand what I was doing at that point, but I was literally manifesting my own life without even realizing it, right? Sure enough, time goes by. I ended up losing 100 pounds. I started competing, started getting into the fitness industry, and I started documenting my whole story on social media. And sure enough, from there, that led me into professional fitness modeling. Then people started asking me, like, do you train people? And I was like, I'm not certified. And they're like, I don't care. I just teach me what you're doing because you look amazing. And yeah, I got to the point where I started training people. Then I got into personal training and I made a business out of it. At this point, I remember online coaching was very, very new. I ended up doing this photo shoot with this photographer and ended up taking that money. I invested I think it was like $1,000 on a photo shoot, money that I didn't have. I pulled it from a credit card. I paid for it. Then I went online and I told people that I was doing a challenge, like a 30-day challenge. And I was like, it's $100. Whoever wants to join, send me a PayPal. And sure enough, the next morning I woke up to I think it was like $10,000 overnight off of just online coaching. And it was overnight, just with $100, low barrier offer. That's when I was like, whoa, like there's something to this. Like I can actually make a business out of this. Sure enough, got into personal training and I was very successful at that. I built a 6-figure business with the personal training, but then COVID happened. And I remember they were like, we're going to close down all the gyms. And at that point I was like, what am I going to do? Like everything is in person. And sure enough, I came across this guy who's actually one of my best friends now, Brandon Carter. King Keto, he goes by King Keto on social media, and he was like, he's one of the top guru online coaches. He was like, I've got this program where I'm teaching people how to scale their business online. So if you're a personal trainer, you should do this. And I was talking to him and he was trying to convince me, and I was like, this guy's just trying to sell me something. But he's like, look, dude, I am trying to sell you something, but I'm trying to save you from the situation. I got word that they're going to close the gyms in a couple of days within the week. So you want this now. So I was like, how much is it going to cost me? And he was $10,000. And I was like, I don't have $10,000 like that, you know? And he was like, well, it is what it is. So sure enough, I ended up pulling some money. Then I started just applying for credit cards. I ended up hiring him, and I made my first 40,000 in 1 month. So I was like, wow, like that was insane. I got so good at sales and understanding people because I was around people all the time. The fact that I lost 100 pounds, I understood what people were dealing with emotionally, physically, spiritually, everything. So I got to the point where I rewrote a lot of his scripts, and he had a 60-minute script. I came up with the famous 25-minute script that's made actually millions in the fitness industry. It's a really famous script. I wrote that. And I presented it to him, and he was like, how did you do this? And I was like, well, I took your script and I realized there's a lot of stuff that needed to be changed. So then I started doing what was working for me. And sure enough, he was like, do you want to work for me? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So that was like my very first actual mentor that took me under his wing. He ended up teaching me that. Then I started investing into other mentors, and it got me to where I'm at now. Since then, I've been on 4 international magazine covers. I am a man of God. I stand by that. I've transformed thousands of people, both men and women. I've saved a lot of marriages. I've saved a lot of lives, because health issues and stuff like that. And I'm very proud of what I've accomplished in just 13 years. 13 years has built me a 7-figure business, and I've been able to connect with thousands of people just sharing exactly what I do. And I think what I do is very unique because I didn't even understand what I was doing, but how I was changing myself, it was through manifestation and through tapping into my subconscious mind to be able to design a new version of myself. That's exactly what I do with my clients. That's why my approach is so different than a lot of the other trainers. So I when people come on to me, that's what I do. I tell them, hey, let's design a new version of yourself, because everything's tied to self-identity, right? This is the reason why most people can't sustain their results, because they haven't done the internal work to be able to relate to this new version that they're becoming. So yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell, that's how it's been.
Wow, what an amazing story. And, bravo for you for coming out of those dark places and being able to be brave enough to just move forward and say, you know what, I'm going to do something. And yeah, the power of prayer and God, always will bring you into the light. So good for you for being able to just have that courage and know that you deserve better and that you can move into a direction where you can also help others. And it's amazing to hear you talk about how you've helped people with their health, men and women, not only with staying away from any potential health diseases or, health issues, physically, but listening to you say that you also help people with their marriages. I'm sure that, the physicality probably had a lot to do with it, but I'm guessing there's some other areas too. I've also heard on your social media, you talk about how you try to encourage men and women too on areas where they could probably just be a little more disciplined in trying to better their relationships in general. So I would really love to, touch on with you the whole landscape of how men and women kind of navigate through those relationships. So it's, taking those first steps and bettering our health, and let's work out and listen to Luis, and he's guiding us, and be open-minded. And in addition to that, it sounds like because you're this force that wants to mentor and help people, that there's a lot more that people can gain from you too. So what is it that you think that we can kind of touch on where there's the masculine and the feminine energies, once everybody's feeling a little bit better physically about themselves and maybe being able to run down the street and feel better in addition to that, but then just now what's the next step? We definitely want to be able to start dating and get into those healthy relationships. Yeah. I'm sure we've all had, some stories where some bad things have happened in relationships that, whether it was similar to what you've experienced, and I'm sorry you had to go through that. And, I know we all had kind of our stumbling blocks, but I think we learn along the way. And I would love to hear what your thoughts are on navigating through that relationship landscape of men and women and masculine and feminine.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So with this, I'll start with men first. I feel like men in today's society are very weak. It's not like it used to be. I feel like in the last 10 years, a lot of the dynamics have shifted when it comes to men. I feel like men don't talk about their feelings, which it's been like that for a very, very long time. But now it's almost like they're afraid to talk about their feelings. When they do, they get emasculated, or it doesn't go the way that they plan on having that situation go. But I feel like now, like, we start hearing a lot of like men that I feel like women are becoming more empowered in the work field. There's a lot more entrepreneur women, which I love. I think it's fantastic because a lot of them are going after their goals. I love it. However, it's getting to the point where, like, I feel like feminists are starting to preach the whole, well, we don't need a man, I don't need to depend on a man, and so, and which is fine, to each their own. But what happens then is when you come in with that energy into a relationship and you're telling me that you don't need me, then, well, I'm like, well, fine, you get it. Like, what am I doing here? Right. And I feel like now men are, when men go out to the world to try to date, they're not getting the results that they're looking for, just because this energy dynamic it's completely off. Right. But there's an easy way to fix it. I always tell guys, like, I don't care how masculine or how in her masculine a woman is, she'll always submit to a masculine man if he comes correct, right? And when I'm talking about submitting, a lot of women get triggered when I say that with the word, like, what do you mean? Does that mean that the man is better than me? No, I do believe that we're both good at what we do. We just do things differently. You might be better at something, I might be better at some other things, right? So it's like we're on the same team, we're just playing different positions, right? And when I say submitting, to me, that just means allow the man to be the man, right? Like, hey, I got this. Like, relax. Like,
Yes.
let me take some of that weight off your shoulders, right? So I always tell guys, first of all, like, if you're trying to become, you have to become the best version of yourself. There's no way around it, especially in today's society. I do believe that all men are in competition. I do believe that, right? Like, we're competing for certain careers, for everything, even for dating. Like, if we both like the same woman, she's going to pick the best option. That's just the way it is. To me, that's female nature. She's always going to go with whatever her best option is, and that's completely fine and very understandable. Especially if you're planning on having kids, you're going to pick whoever is the better mate for you, right? So I always tell guys, you have to become the best version of yourself. That starts with personal development, right? You should be in the gym, you should be taking care of yourself, your mind, your body, everything, right? So I always say that you have to be mentally fit, physically fit, financially fit, and overall be in alignment with God, right? That's where the transformation starts. I always tell guys, like, it's very, very important that you believe in a higher power. To me, that's God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, right? That's in alignment. The reason that I say that it's very, very important is because when when you have that God-fearing energy, then now you have a purpose because you believe in something, right? You have a purpose. Men need purpose. This is how we, go out to the world and conquer. If you don't have a purpose, then you have, I do believe that a man without a purpose is a dangerous man. These are the guys that are, these are men that are lazy, they're broke. These are the guys that go and rape people, they do bombings and all this stuff because they're bored. They start, getting in their feelings. They don't have any direction in life. And a man needs direction in life, right? He needs to find his purpose. But for you to find your purpose, you need to be in alignment with God. So it's God, then it's mindset, then it's purpose, then it's action, right? So that's what I teach my guys. You have to be in alignment, right? Then once you have the action, how do we put that action? We start working on ourselves, personal development. So you have to be physically fit. That is just the first thing. I do believe, I used to be overweight. I was obese. And I think that a man, it's unacceptable. Every man should be fit. You have to be strong. Like, I always tell guys, like, you can't be overweight. Like, I always think about, like, the worst case scenario. Like, what if your house is burning down, right? I'm just thinking about the worst case scenario. Your house is burning down. You have to run in there. You have to pick up your wife. You have to drag her out. Now you have to go drag out your 3 kids. If you're not in shape to do that, what are you going to do? You're going to watch your whole family burn? Like, bro, like, you need to be in shape, right? Plus, being in shape says a lot about who you are as a person, right? You're disciplined, you're determined, you stick to your goals. Says so much. It's plus it's a representation of who you are, right? So you have to be physically fit, spiritually fit. You should be in alignment with God. We talked about that. Financially, you have to have your finances in place. I always tell my guys, like, you can't be broke and expect to go date and be successful at it, because you can be the most attractive guy, and yeah, you might have a little success here or there, and you might have a girl kind of spot you here and there, but eventually they get tired of it. After a year, they're like, okay, this guy is just, he's dragging me down. He's a liability. So it just doesn't work that way. Plus, I do believe that men, to me, I believe in traditional values. So the male should be, the leader, the provider, and the protector, right? You should be providing. And when you're not providing, when you're trying to split the bill 50-50, to me, what you're telling your woman is like, I can't provide for you, and I can't provide for my family, right? It's not in me. And also, what that does, I do believe that that's actually a very dangerous thing for a man to do, because now that safety net that your woman had, feeling safe because you can provide for her, now that forces her to be in her masculine, right? Now she has to feel like she has to provide, and she can't count on you to do that. But also, what I do believe it's a very dangerous thing to do, because now I feel like when guys do that, it doesn't force you to do more and demand more out of life, because now you're comfortable. You're like, I don't have to do anything. I mean, she's got half of the bills and stuff like that, right? But if you're a true, real man, and you're like, I'm not in a position to be able to provide for my family like I want to, what do? You get resourceful. You go out into the work field, you start hitting overtime, you start asking, people for more opportunities. You go out in the world and you start doing more, right? It forces you to level up. And when you don't have that type of pressure, where you have, your back against the wall, you get comfortable. This is how you get weak men, right? So you have to be financially fit. So I keep saying that. Plus, for me, I think there's a difference. And I think, I think in the last 10 years, since we have the whole feminist movement, we also have a movement that's very much like that, the total opposite, which is the red pill community. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, where it teaches guys how to disrespect women and how to just sleep around, be womanizers and stuff like that, right? But I do believe that most of these men are just hurt men that didn't get the results that they wanted, and they found ways to try to manipulate women and use them, right? And a lot of it is just based off of lying and playing games. And I always tell guys, you don't have to lie. You don't have to lie to get the results that you want. Just be honest with whatever it is that you want. If you want to sleep with that girl, just let her know what your intentions are. And you know what? She'll have to respect you for that. And she might just do it, right? If you want a relationship, present that right off the bat. Like, there's ways to do it. Like, you don't have to lie. I personally think only weak men lie. And this is how you get into trouble. This is how you lose trust. And that bleeds onto other areas, that just affects relationships in so many different ways. But I think a lot of it is just dynamics. It's polarity. Men don't understand polarity. And polarity is dynamics, traditional roles, right? To me, the man should be the leader, provider, and the protector. And he should be stoic, right? And to me, the feminine role should be nurturing, loving, should be the man's peace. And, she should just be soft and feminine, right? That doesn't mean that if she's got goals and she wants to do something, absolutely. Like for me, like my girl, she doesn't have to work if she doesn't want to. If she wants to, I'm going to bring out the best out of her and be like, what do you want to do? Okay, perfect. You want to start a business? Here, let me help you. How can I be an asset? Do you need some help with this? I don't understand why men get so intimidated when they see a successful woman. That should inspire you to level up, right? But I think those are the biggest issues right now. It's just polarity and dynamics.
Sure. And dynamics is the perfect word to use, because that kept running through my mind too, because there are different circumstances and dynamics these days in the modern age where there are more successful women and there are people that are both working, and maybe they both agree to kind of balance financially. But for the most part, I think typically, underliningly, a lot of what you're saying really resonates with most people, with men and women, And from a woman's perspective, what I believe is really just three things that, yeah, absolutely, women are wanting that kind of strength, not only, the physicality, like, will he be able to physically protect me? But that's not necessarily always the biggest focus when coming from a woman, is like big, strong muscles, because yeah, it's attractive, and it's, kind of that caveman instinct of us to want to have like somebody who's stronger that can, save the day. But more importantly, now in the modern age, yeah, we're thinking about, do I feel safe with this person mentally and spiritually and emotionally? And is he going to make me feel that in our daily interactions with one another, are we going to be able to have conversations and communication and areas where, I know, and any other woman would be able to know, hey, I can talk to this person. I can be myself with this person. We can actually have open lines of communication. Like you said, that honesty, whether, the intentions are one way or the other, at least everybody's being an adult and being honest about things. So from what I believe, there are three main things where it's just women are really looking for romance. They're looking for a man that's actually going to make those efforts and to pour into her to make her feel like she's special and unique. Secondly, I think it's the integrity. A lot of the things you were talking about, like being honest, not being weak-minded, actually just dedicating, being loyal, having discipline in all areas of your life. Women look up to that. And like you said, the submissiveness comes from when a woman watches a man act as a leader and he's doing it with integrity, she will automatically follow. She will start watching him eating right, working out, waking up early, going to work, working hard, the way he talks to people, his everyday interactions, just how he is as a person. She'll admire that, and she'll start to follow him and want to be just like him, or similar and aligned with, his values. And I think that's when he becomes kind of the leader of the house and the relationship. And that's where that submission comes from. So when that misinterpretation of a woman is going to submit to her man, it's not as if she's a slave to him. It's more of she's following him because she believes that he's got this, that he is in charge and he knows exactly what to do. And she feels safe. She can sit back and go, okay, I know that he's going to take care of the situation. And then finally, the third point is that emotional intelligence, the EQ. I think that, like you talked about, weak men that lie and do things that are just working in their best interest. Also, with weak people, men and women both do this. When there's a lack of emotional intelligence, they start acting off of, negative emotions and triggers and bad conditioning, and, letting all that funk that's built up inside of them over the years just kind of take over, rather than trying to learn how to be a better person, treating others with more respect, treating themselves with self-respect. And in my opinion, I think that EQ is more important than IQ. I think that if you know how to talk to people, how to handle a tough situation in a way that is just good, productive communication, it's going to go a long way.
Absolutely. I think something to define that would be a man of integrity. Like, you need to be a man of integrity, right? So I tell all my guys, like, how you treat one person is how you treat everything in life, right? Like, how I do one thing is how I do everything in life, right? So if I am on a date, I'm going to go and talk to the owner of the restaurant the same way that I'm going to talk to the busser, right? I'm going to shake his hand and be like, what's your name? And I'm going to introduce myself. I don't care who it is. I treat everybody the same way, right? And when you're talking about, submission, I think submission from a woman comes from that, just feeling safe enough to know that, hey, my man, he's got it, and I trust him enough to know that he's going to make the best decision for the relationship, right? And how do we do that? Because a lot of men might be asking, like, well, how do I do that? Well, you have to take charge. You have to take initiative, right? Something as simple as, in, like, one of the biggest things that I always see is as an issue is, planning a date, for example, right? So most men, again, they get comfortable, right? So instead of doing a date night, what do? Oh, well, let's just order out, right? Which is fine here and there, right? But to me, if you want a healthy relationship, you have to be romancing your woman through the dating stage and even through marriage. Like, it never stops. As a man, you never stop being a man. You always have to show up, and that it's tough being a man, but this is the role. And once you understand it, you know what the agenda is. right? So something as simple as in like, rather than saying, hey babe, what do you want for dinner? We always see this. I don't know. What do you want? Oh, I don't know. What are you in the mood for? Right? I always tell guys, like, just take charge. Be like, hey, look, listen, Friday night, we're doing date night. We're going to go to this sushi place. I'm going to call them. I'm going to make the reservations. Wear that red dress that we just bought you. Wear that, right? I'll pick you up at 7 o'clock. I'm going to go run some errands. I'll be back. Be ready by 7 o'clock. And that's it, right? You have the location. You made the reservations already. You're going to be told her what to wear, right? Because you know that you like that. And I think women, that's what women do. They get pretty for men. They want to feel beautiful. And if I'm telling you, I love that red dress, it's going to make you feel beautiful because you're like, wow, my man really likes this dress. Some little details like that matter, right? So, and even then, making the reservations, taking initiative to be like, hey, babe, I've got this. All I need you to do is just show up, be feminine, be soft, have fun, and enjoy good company. That's it, right? That should be your goal. And you get, like, I even go above and beyond where like I like to order for the table, right? Like, and some guys are like, well, isn't that like too much? I'm like, no, it's not. There's ways to do it, right? Like, let's just say you and I are dating, right? And we go to this restaurant and it's a new place. You've never been there. Maybe I have, right? The way that I would approach it is like, we're looking at the menu. Hey, do you have any allergies? No. Okay, perfect. Is there anything that you don't like? No, I'm open to anything. Okay, perfect. Do you mind if I order for the table? I'm going to order a couple appetizers. There's a few appetizers that are kind of standing out. Are you okay with that? Yeah. Okay. So one, you're taking initiative, but you're also checking up with her to be like, hey, are you okay with this? Right? Now she's allowing you to be the man. She's allowing you to be the leader. And this is where you take charge. You go, hey, we're going to have the Brussels sprouts. We're going to have the sweet potatoes, the steak skewers, and bring us the salmon. Perfect. Are you okay with that? Okay, perfect. Go back into conversation, right? Now, at this point, you're probably going to feel like, I can just relax now, right? I don't have to think about anything, right? And those are like small little things that go a long ways that a lot of men don't do, right? So, and even like something as simple as like filling up your girlfriend's gas tank or your wife's gas tank so she doesn't have to do it, right? If there's a check engine light on the car, go and fix it. Those are masculine roles that we should be doing as a provider, as a protector, right? Because the last thing that I want is for you to get a flat tire or, there's a check engine light, now the car's broken, now you're freaking out, right? Now I have to go save the day. I can go save the day, but now it's going to be a bigger problem. Those are small little things in relationships that a lot of guys overlook.
So I have a quick question for you. So do you think that maybe you can have a little message out there for the ladies? I know that I was kind of just unveiling what I think that maybe some guys want to be able to hear. Hey, this is what women are looking for and hoping for. We want romance, we want communication, and we want to feel safe. And you're definitely super strong in being able to let guys know the steps that they need to take and being able to refine themselves. Do you think you maybe have a couple tips for ladies of just, hey, this is some areas that would make guys feel a little bit better and probably would help the relationship go a long way?
Absolutely. Just like men get comfortable, I do believe that women get comfortable in relationships too, right? Most women like to dress up, but most ladies don't like to dress up every single day, right? So a lot of times they just like to throw up their hair and a little bun and sweats and a t-shirt because it's comfortable, right? And it's fine, right? You have to understand, but you have to understand, we fall in love through our eyes. We love beauty, right? So if we're gonna go out somewhere, to me, I always tell like women, like, dress to impress. Look good for your man because you represent your man. And for us, believe it or not, us guys, we're very judgmental. We judge other men based off of the women that they're dating, right? So if we're dating and we're going to go meet my business partner who you've never met, I know for a fact he's going to look at you and look at me and be like, okay, nice. Or what is he doing with her type of thing? Like we do. And we'll talk about it later. Like women don't understand like how judgmental men are about other women, right? So I always tell like women, like, take the effort to look pretty, dress up for your man. The biggest issue that I see, and a lot of women are probably not going to like this, but it's just attitude. Like, when it comes to like masculine women, I understand it's been a hard life. There's a lot of weak men out there that don't step up, don't do their roles and stuff like that. But you don't have to do all this stuff. If you just allow the man to be the man, you will have a better outcome, right? So attitude, right? Learn not to argue about everything, right? Because most arguments lead into a bad fight. That bad fight leads into resentment. So if it's not that important, just let it go. Communication is key, right? We communicate completely different, men and women, right? I always
Yeah.
try to tell guys, this is where you have to be stoic, right? But the biggest thing is just allow the man to be the man. If you can just allow yourself to be in your feminine state, that is when, like, that's the essence of being a woman. Like, that is the most beautiful thing. When you see a woman who's soft spoken, she's beautiful. Like, again, it goes back to what I was saying. My friends are going to be like, wow, like, how did you land her? I'm jealous, right? Like, we love that. Like, that's how we fall in love. We fall in love through attitude, based off of energy, because everything's like an exchange of energy, but through our eyes as well. So, like, the looks has to match the personality. So just allow the man to be the man. And if you allow the man to be the man will step up. Most of them will. Most of them are intimidated because most girls are like, no, I got this, right? And I've dated women that are like that, and I'm like, I got this. Just relax. All I want you to do is just have a good time. Let me handle this. And that's it. Like, you have to have a backbone as a man, and just take initiative. But yeah, I think that's all it is. Just allow the man to be the man. Allow the man to love you.
And like you said, it's just, speaking different languages, pink and blue. I mean, I've heard of the book Love and Respect, and I've read that in the past. And it's just, men they hear and speak in blue, and women hear and speak in pink. And it's, sometimes really hard to be able to hear each other correctly. And we're on different wavelengths sometimes. But it's, trying to understand what masculine means when you're a woman, and trying to understand what feminine means when you're a man. So if a woman maybe is a little more calm and isn't as involved in things, it doesn't necessarily mean that she's not interested. So sometimes I think there's misunderstandings there. And it's, I believe that's more of her trying to be in her feminine and allowing him to take charge. Where, when relationships sometimes go a little bit south and they start saying, well, what have you been doing all day? I'm the one who's working so hard. And the woman now has to defend herself for that. Or the other way around, where it's, you are working so hard all the time, you're never paying any attention to me. And there's so many just areas where there's so many complications. And again, it's just communication. And I think in that communication also is the opportunity for people to say, this is what I need from you. You're my woman. I want you to just be calm, be at peace. Please trust me. I've got this. Or for a woman to say, hey, you know what? I feel like I almost feel like I can't lean on you sometimes. And this is getting really hard. And I feel like I have to pull away from you and do things myself. And I really just want to know that I can trust in you. So I think having those kind of tough conversations really can go a long way.
Absolutely. I think both men and women should have these conversations very early on, because if you have, nobody wants to have these conversations on the first date, right? Because most people are like, whoa, like, that's too much. Like, we just met. But, personally, me, I'm a very direct man. I know what I want out of life. I have a vision, and I'm not afraid to voice what it is that I'm trying to get out of this situation, right? So if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. I'd rather just not waste your time or my time, but at least we'll know if we're both on the same page, right? So if you're saying, like, again, going back to just being direct, if you and I were to be on a date, even if it's the first date, I'm going to ask those questions. I'm going to be like, do you want kids? Do you have kids? Okay, perfect. Are you open to more kids? No? Okay, great. What do you expect from a man? Like, what's your definition of a healthy relationship? I'll gather some information, then I'll tell you what my information is. Then we'll put it together and be like, hey, look, listen, I think you're attractive. I love everything about you, and I would love to see you, but this is what I expect out of a relationship. Like, I don't want a combative woman. I want a woman to be my peace. I want her to be nurturing. Sex is very important, and I need someone to keep me close to God. Like, that's all I need. And great communication. That's all I need from you. That's it.
Yeah.
What do you need from me? Right?
Yeah.
If you tell me, hey, well, I need someone who's going to provide, someone who's going to make me feel safe, someone who's going to protect me. Check. Okay, perfect. Now we're both on the same page. Now we can both go work on the relationship. But what happens, most people don't have these conversations until they're engaged, until they're married. And this is why divorces happen, because you never vetted that person enough.
Right, right. I like to say that you got to treat a business like a relationship and a relationship like a business. As a business owner, I find it really easy to have certain conversations, but then in relationships, I feel like, that personal touch, you're
Mhm.
considering now somebody's emotions a lot more and the dynamics of your interaction with them on a daily basis. So sometimes those conversations become a little more tough. But then when you kind of look at it from that analogy as, would I do this in a business? Is
Mhm.
this how I would treat somebody? Is this what I would how I would speak to them? Would I, get upset, overly emotional and reactive, or would I collect my thoughts and think, how can I communicate this to achieve what I want in the end? So that's kind of like how I try to look at it sometimes. None of us are perfect. I mean, we all kind of stumble along, but I heard something the other day I thought was so great. And it said that if there's ever expectations that are not vocalized, it just becomes resentment
Yeah.
like right out the gate. So it's important, like you said, to kind of, have a little drip system, or in the early stages, not immediately on those first dates, but then, pretty early on, you want to be pretty honest and just kind of relay your standards and expectations, not in a demanding way, but just a way that, helps the other person to decide, okay,
Mhm.
are you aligned with me?
Yeah, yeah. I agree 100%. One thing that I do when I'm in relationships is I have the same mindset as you. I treat everything as a business, right? It's either a good deal or a bad deal, right? But even then, as the CEO, I have to make the best decisions possible to be able to save the business, right? So what I like to do is even when I'm in relationships, like, just every month or once a month, like I like to sit down with my partner and just take inventory of where we're at. And
Yes.
be, if there's something that's bothering me, I'll bring it up and be like, hey, look, listen, I don't like how you conduct yourself in public, or when you say this, or you talk to the waiter this way. Like that's a little embarrassing for me. I know, like I don't know if you're aware of that, but that's your representation of me. Like
Yeah.
do that. I would, I would really appreciate it if you just conduct yourself better
Yeah.
rather than getting reactive and being like, whoa, like, don't tell me how to act. Like, just be receptive. Be like, okay, I understand what you're saying. Perfect. Now it's your turn. Then I'll throw the ball in your court. Is there anything where I'm lacking that you feel like I can be better? Right?
Yeah.
Like, is there anything that maybe you want to communicate to me? And like, ladies, just communicate to guys, because guys are pretty dumb. We're pretty dumb when it comes to that stuff, like in the sense of like, it's not that we don't care. You have to understand that we're dealing with like so many things, business, relationships outside, a lot of problems. There's so much, like we deal with like 1,000 things that are going on in our heads that a lot of the times we might miss the fact that we forgot to put the toilet seat up or
Yeah.
whatever it is. If it's important to you, just communicate it. You
Right.
communicate it, now we know, like
Right.
we don't read minds. But that's all it is. It just comes down to like proper communication. And I
Sure.
think that's very important for both parties to be good communicators. Like, to me, that's a red flag. Someone who can't communicate, that's going to lead to a toxic relationship. Like, you don't, like, when you're in the stages of dating, that should be your primary thing, is this, can this person communicate? Because that leads into, name calling, disrespecting, and it can escalate really, really fast. And we've seen that a
Right.
lot, so I think that's a red flag for both parties. Like, you have to be a good communicator.
So when people are taking your coaching and your mentoring and your courses and they're turning to you, initially, I'm sure they probably come to you with the understanding that there's going to be a fitness opportunity there, that you're going to help them in a transformation with that. Is there also the opportunity that you guide them kind of like a life coach too? Do you guide them into understanding their everyday disciplines, not only in their fitness and their health,
Mhm.
but in other areas as well? And do you only take in men or do you take in women as well?
I take both men and women, and that's what it turns into. It turns into life coaching. Like I said, people think that they come to me to get a six pack, but they leave a better version of themselves.
Oh, that's great.
And that's what it is. It turns into life coaching because I give them a blueprint. Everything's alignment. Like I said, it's like it's mind, body, and soul. So we have to tackle every single area for you to be successful in every area in life. Because if you become the best version of yourself, not just physically, you're also going to be better in your relationship, a better communicator. You're going to bring the best version of yourself because you're no longer going to bring that low vibration that you were operating at, because now your frequency has just shifted to a, almost like flow state, right? So you're going to be probably producing more in your work. You're going to make more money. And it turns into just, it's such a great experience. Like, I just recently had one of my really good clients who's been with me for about 6 months. He came to me, he was 40 pounds overweight, just low vibration. He's got kids, and he's married. The same thing. He was just like, he was struggling financially. He's a business owner, but he was struggling financially. He was struggling with his marriage, communication, and everything. We got him to lose the 40 pounds. I started teaching him about energy, frequency, alignment, and how to understand the frequency levels, right? Like, when he's at a low vibration, that's like anger, that's resentment, that's lust, that's, boredom, all these like low frequencies that leads to vices, and, it leads to a dangerous area, right? So he was telling me that he had an argument with his girlfriend, his wife, and long story short, it escalated really bad, right? It escalated really, really bad, and he called me and he was like, I'm freaking out. Like I don't like, I conducted myself the way that I didn't want to. I feel like I broke character, because I always say you're breaking character, right? Because we build a new character. And he's like, this is not in alignment with who I am. And he's like, I've been thinking about it and I feel so bad. Like, what should I do? And I told him, I was like, remember that frequency chart that we were talking about? He's like, yeah, right now you're at a low frequency. Do you understand karmic debt? And he's like, not exactly. I was like, okay, let me explain to you what karmic debt is for us men. Karmic debt is going to rob us from our time. So when we step out of character, like you did, and you spoke to your wife this way, what happens? Now karmic debt is punishing you by robbing time from you. So now you're not going to be able to perform through your day. You're going to be thinking about the situation. You're going to be feeling guilty, shame, and all these low vibrations, and you're not going to be able to focus on work, focus on being productive, right? And he was like, well, how do I fix it? I was like, well, you have to shift your energy, right? Go get a good workout, go raise your heart rate, and that's going to shift your frequency, get in a good mindset, and go apologize, right? He did. And he called me back and he's like, oh my God, she was so happy, and like it fixed everything. And I was like, that's all it is. It's understanding, frequency levels. But it's a game changer. It's a blueprint to life.
Sure. That's great. I mean, it sounds like you really have a great blueprint and program that's available for people. Is there an easy way for us all to get a hold of you? What would you recommend if people wanted to reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to contact me is either through Instagram, which is at Luis Montoya Fit. You can just direct message me. I do answer all my messages. I don't work with the team. I don't work with setters or anything like that. When you hire me, I always tell people, if you invest in me, I will invest in you. And I promise that you give me 6 months of your life, I will completely change your life for the best. Instagram is the best way to contact me, or Facebook. If you wish to go to my website, you can, but it's just easier to just hit me up on Instagram.
And you have a great platform, by the way. I mean, everything that you put up there is just very inspiring and motivational. So I just appreciate it myself. Sometimes I sneak on and try to get some little tidbits here and there. It sounds like you're really a great mentor as well. And I appreciate you taking the time today to be on the show, telling us your transformation, not only from your fitness and life and everything that you went through, getting out of some dark places and, igniting something inside of you that just told you, a voice that spoke from above and said, you know what? You are meant for great things. You are meant to help other people, and you have a great path ahead of you. Don't give up. And it's so inspiring to hear, everything that you've been through and the person you have become, because you are now a beacon of light for others that are really needing a lot of help too.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So thank you again, Luis, for your time. And everybody, thank you for tuning in, listening to Ignited, our podcast where we talk about transformation of faith and mindset. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, love, and share these videos. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And just if you wanted to reach out to Luis, you got his Instagram handle. Make sure you get your mentorship program as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.